So welcome to today's lesson, and today we're going to discuss phrasal verbs that include the word call. So as you can see on my whiteboard, I have a list of phrasal verbs that include this word, call. So we're going to work through them one by one and consider what these phrasal verbs mean, how to use them, and also focus on some pronunciation as well. So let's take the first phrasal verb, call for. What does this phrasal verb mean? Well, one common meaning is when something has been made necessary. Okay, a situation has come up and we have to do something. So perhaps you've heard the phrase desperate times calls for desperate measures. What does this mean? It means because things are difficult, desperate times, it has become necessary to take desperate measures or do things which perhaps we normally wouldn't do. Okay, so that's one way or one meaning of call for. A second common use for call for is when talking about some kind of public demand or something the public has requested. So if you look at two of our examples up here, we've got a call for an election or a call for a change. In both situations, the public has demanded or requested that something needs to happen. So as we can see, we can use call for to talk about a public demand, something that they want. Look at our example sentence. There were calls for a referendum. Okay, so in this example sentence, the public are demanding or expecting something to take place, in this case a referendum. So that's an interesting word, referendum. What is a referendum? Well, a referendum is when the citizens of a country are called upon to vote upon a particular decision that will affect all of them, and they have two choices, either yes or no. A good example of that is Brexit. I live in Britain. You've probably heard about Brexit, where people were given a choice. Do you want to stay in the EU or do you want to leave the EU? And you had to pick one choice. So that's a referendum. Okay, good. So these are ways that we can use the phrasal verb call for. How about our second phrasal verb, to call in? So one way we can use call in is when, for example, we're making a request. Okay? We want someone to do something for us, perhaps because we've done something for them in the past. Okay, so for example, to call in a favor. Okay, call in a favor. You ask someone to do something for you because you need help. Okay, that's one way to use it. Our second way to use call in is when we talk about making a telephone call to a particular place. Usually we're talking about our workplace. Okay, so for example, let's say you are sick, you can't go into work, so what you do is you call in to work to let them know that I can't make it today. So look at our example sentence. I called in sick. Okay, I called in sick. What does this mean? It means I was unwell, so I called the office or the place where I work and told them, unfortunately, because I'm sick, I can't come in to work today. I called in sick. So how about pronunciation? Well, you notice that call ends with the letter L, okay, the consonant L, and the next word begins with a vowel I. So because of that, there's kind of a linking sound. Okay, it almost becomes like one word. Okay, call in, call in. So try repeat that to yourself. Perhaps practice saying it out loud. Call in. Okay, good. And the same kind of applies here. Okay, with this consonant and this vowel linking. Called in. Okay, I called in sick. I called in sick. Called in. Called in. Okay, so they kind of link together and become kind of one word. How about our next phrasal verb? Call off. Okay, what does it mean to call off? Well, to call off something is usually used when we're talking about some kind of event or an arrangement that we have, and we want to end this arrangement or cancel the event for some reason. So look at our example sentence. The wedding was called off. the wedding was called off. So the wedding has already been arranged, perhaps let's say for 5 months down the line, 5 months into the future. But now something has come up, perhaps the couple are no longer in love and they've decided to not get married. So in that case, because it's an arranged event, we would say it has been called off. Okay. Now again, notice the ending of call with the L and then the beginning of with the vowel sound. So again, it's kind of a connecting sound. Call off, call off. Okay, perhaps you want to try saying that to yourself. Call off, call off. And again, for the past tense, similar thing. The D sound connecting with the O sound here. Called off, called off. Okay, the wedding was called off. Unlike the other phrasal verbs we've already considered, we can actually separate the verb, this part, from the particle. So for example, we can rephrase this and say, they're going to call the wedding off. Okay, they're going to call the wedding off. So we can separate the verb from the particle, which we cannot do with the other two, call in and call for. So let's move to the next one, call up. What does call up mean? Well, call up again has a variety of different meanings. One common usage is when someone is required to come and join a service, particularly a military service. So, for example, he was called up for the armed forces. He was called up for the Navy. Okay, he's required to come and join a particularly military force. So in this example, this would be to officially make someone a member of the armed forces, or some kind of military force, especially during times of war. Now another way we can use the phrasal verb call up is in relation to making a telephone call to someone. Okay, usually perhaps to a friend, perhaps to ask them for help. And another way is also to ask someone to do something for you. Okay. Now in this example, we can separate the verb from the particle. So again, if you look at the example sentence, you can call me up anytime. Notice here that the object is in between the particle and the verb. You can call me up anytime. However, in the first instance, where we use call up as speaking about service, we cannot separate the particle from the verb. It has to stay together. So we can call up a friend or call a friend up, but we can only be called up or call someone up for service. So again, let's look at some pronunciation. We have the same thing again with the consonant on the end of call and the vowel at the beginning of up. So again, we have that connection. Call up, call up. Okay, again, it almost becomes one word. Let's look at our next phrasal verb, call on. What does this phrasal verb mean? Well, again, it can have two different meanings. Firstly, to pay a visit to someone. Okay, so you go to someone's house or their place of work to see them. So to call on someone. Look at our example sentence. I called on him to see if he was okay. This means I visited him at his house or his place of work to make sure everything was okay with him. Again, we have that linking. Okay, call on, called on. So a second way to use call on is when we have recourse to do something. So when we say recourse, we mean when we can find help in a difficult situation. Okay, so for example, we're able to call on the doctors to help us in an emergency situation. Okay, so that's another example of how we can use the phrasal verb call on. How about our next phrasal verb, to call out? Well, there are two common ways we use call out. There are other ways as well, but there are two common ways we use. The first one is to call out a name. So for example, think of children in school and there is a register and the teacher calls out the name of the children to make sure they're in attendance. Okay. The second way we can use the phrasal verb to call out is in reference to highlighting perhaps when someone has done something wrong and we are criticizing them for the wrong thing they have done. Okay? So in this case, someone is called out because they've done something which is inappropriate or now you notice again we have that situation of linking the words call out, and again here for the past tense called out. She was called out from the crowd. Okay, call out, called out, that linking situation again. Finally, we have call to. What does this mean? Well, we can call to someone to get their attention. So perhaps someone is across the road, we want to get their attention, we call to them, and hopefully they hear us and respond. So for example, look at our sentence. She called to her husband to help carry the bags. So in this situation, the bags are too heavy. She tried to get her husband's attention to come and help her carry some of these bags. Now you notice this little funny symbol that I've got down here. This is what we call a schwa. And a schwa is when a vowel sound is shortened and almost doesn't exist. So in the pronunciation here, call to becomes call to, call to. So in this situation, the vowel sound almost disappears. She had to call to her husband to help carry the bags. She had to call to her husband to help carry the bags. So thanks for watching my video, guys. Hopefully this video was useful and helped you learn about some phrasal verbs. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future.